What's going on, YouTube? What's going on, Facebook? I appreciate you guys so much for joining. In the first minute or two, I'm going to play this clip from the World Health Organization. She says something very interesting about what they think about children booster shots. Very different from what the CDC is saying, which is interesting because if I were to question the World Health Organization in 2020, they would put a banner or take down my post and say, you are not allowed to disagree with the World Health Organization. If you dare disagree with the World Health Organization on anything, that's a violation of Facebook. But now, even our own CDC is doing something different than the World Health Organization. Isn't that just fascinating? But I'll play that clip first. But the real two stories of the day are, I want to talk about Israel. Israel had 212,000 cases, more than 212,000 cases yesterday. Their population's only about 9.2 million. I did the math. That would be equivalent in America to over 7.5 million cases. So they're having, last week, what was recorded as the most cases per capita on Earth. And now they are having, record high hospitalizations. They are having record high cases. Even the deaths on January 24th, according to Johns Hopkins University data right off Google, they had 88 deaths in Israel in the data, and that would be one of the highest death rates that they've had recently, or rather one of the highest death days that they've had in Israel. I believe they maybe had one or two more max. Isn't this stuff just fascinating? But before we start talking about the science that's settled, you cannot question, Rochelle Walensky of the CDC. Here's the World Health Organization giving opposite advice as the CDC is giving. Because if you Google this stuff and look it up, the CDC is green-lighting booster shots in some children. And I believe they have approved it or at least scaled it out. And this is what the World Health Organization is saying. Let's listen to the clip and I'll tell you exactly what the CDC is saying after this.
Many of the vaccines have shown a reduction in efficacy against infection. And that's why we see a lot of breakthrough infections, but these are mostly not resulting in severe disease. So that's a positive. There is some waning which occurs over a period of time. And we've seen that there's a slight drop in the protection, again, mostly against infection, but also a little bit against the severe disease. And we need more of those studies. We need to follow this out. And that is why we've said putting all of this together.
Wait, we need, real quick, she said we need more studies. Oh, we do? I thought we had it all figured out. Really? You learn and evolve as time goes on? You don't just say you know it all day one? Oh, okay.
The aim is to protect the most vulnerable, to protect those at highest risk of severe disease and dying. Those are our elderly populations, the immunocompromised, people with underlying conditions, but also healthcare workers, because if a lot of healthcare workers get infected, as we see now, they can be out sick, and we don't want them getting severely ill. So to reserve boosters for that population. There's no evidence right now that healthy children or healthy adolescents need boosters. No evidence at all.
Listen.
There's no evidence right now that healthy children or healthy adolescents need boosters. No evidence at all.
There's no evidence at all that healthy children need booster shots. That's what the World Health Organization says. If I were, my reporting in 2020, to be honest, was pretty spot on. They were like, fact check, you disagree with the World Health Organization. And it's like, well, first of all, they're not God. You should be allowed to question them just like you should be allowed to question the CDC. But anyway, I would get a mark on my platform if I were to disagree with the World Health Organization. But the CDC in America says, the CDC, this is as of January 5th, they put a press release out. They are expanding their booster shot eligibility and strengthens recommendations for 12 to 17-year-olds. So World Health Organization says there's no evidence at all that booster shots should be in children or that it helps. And the CDC says we are recommending it for 12 to 17-year-olds, while the World Health Organization is not. So this is pointing to something very important. I know people on my channel get it. We have a pretty smart audience, pretty educated audience, informed, unbiased. But the mainstream media, who has just been blasting propaganda into people's heads, they can't think. They're like, horse dewormer, I can't think for myself. Joe Rogan hurt my feelings. Dave Chappelle makes me cry at night. I love Fauci. Give me another Fauci ouchie. A Fauci ouchie could also not just mean an injection, but a Fauci ouchie could mean a tattoo. They're like, ow, ouchie. Oh, I got a new Fauci tattoo. That's another Fauci ouchie. But in general, these people don't critically think anymore. And they're like, how dare you question the doctors? There's 200 doctors that don't like Joe Rogan. It's like, cool, there's 17,000 doctors that disagree with Dr. Fauci. There's, you lose your medical license if you go against the mainstream narrative. So it's just fascinating. If people could use their brains for 2 seconds, the World Health Organization is one of the biggest health organizations in the world, hence its name. One of the most powerful. I honestly don't like the World Health Organization, and I honestly don't like the United Nations. I find them to be a little bit too communisty. I feel like they don't understand personal liberty and basic private rights. I don't believe, but to be fair, they seem to be more honest than our own CDC and our government. And people need to realize that major health organizations around the world, Japan's health ministry, Israel's health ministry, America's health ministry, Brazil, everybody does it differently. There's no such thing as, oh, we're all doing the exact same thing, and anybody who questions it's a conspiracy theorist. The World Health Organization doesn't even agree with our own CDC. Isn't that just fascinating? Speaking of fascinating, we're going to talk about how the Biden administration pulled the monoclonal antibodies emergency use authorization and what that means. But let's get into Israel real quick. First of all, shout out to any Israelis that follow me. God bless y'all. And I apologize that your government is so insane and tyrannical. And I apologize to Americans that our politicians on the left and right wing are so sold out to that country that they've tried to pass speech laws in which you can't criticize Israel. So shame on the Republicans who do that, and shame on the Democrats. But in general, we love everyone here. In Israel, they're not talking about booster shots, just booster shots. They're talking about 4 shots. In fact, this is the Associated Press from January 14th, just a week ago. Israel says 500,000 people have received the 4th dose of the vaccine. Ready? Israel's health ministry says more than 500,000, 500,000 people have received 4 vaccine doses. Holy smokes, that's a lot of vaccines. So let's look at the data real quick. How many people are in Israel? According to recent reports, obviously population fluctuates, but around 9.217 million people are in Israel. How many doses have been given? According to Our World in Data updated 2 days ago, looks like Israel has given around 17.8 million, doses of vaccine. So almost 2 doses for every person. Around 9 million people in their country, around 18 million people have been given, 18 million doses have been given out. So how did that work? At least 6.6 million people have had 1 dose. That's 72.5% of the population. At least 65.8% of the population's been fully vaccinated, which doesn't even make sense anymore because they're telling you you're fully vaccinated, but you're clearly not fully vaccinated if you need to get a booster shot. So that term that they made up doesn't even make sense. You're fully vaccinated, except you need a booster shot to go eat at a McDonald's in Tel Aviv. Well, maybe you're not fully vaccinated then. So it's like, that's a bullshit term they made up. Like, breakthrough case. They're so rare, we'll call them a breakthrough. It just broke through your vaccine. Oh, wow. One of the most vaccinated countries now has, so many cases. It's just millions of breakthrough cases all over the place. Yeah, maybe that wasn't the right word then. But, you do your thing. Breakthrough. Oh, it just broke through the immunity. Just rare. I mean, who could have saw that coming? Whatever. And over 5 million people have been given a booster shot. And apparently 500,000 people have been given 4 shots. So just to sum it up, 72.5% of the population, at least 1 dose. 65.8% of the population, 6 million people fully vaccinated, aka 2 doses, not really fully vaccinated. Boosters been given to over 5 million people in Israel. And then the 4th shot that nobody even knows about in America because we're still rolling out the booster. The 4th shot has been given to 500,000 people. So how are they faring? They must be really, breaking through the breakthrough cases, right? Actually, no. Like I said, they had over 212,000 cases reported yesterday. That would be equivalent to in America over 7.5 million cases, which is way higher, over double, triple what we've experienced this Omicron season. So a country that is taking vaccination way more seriously than America, onto their 4th dose is in no way, shape, or form curbing this, transmission of this disease. So death-wise, I understand the more cases, the more deaths, usually for sure. But for a while, Israel's really keeping it down. Johns Hopkins University reported yesterday that on January 24th, there were 88 deaths. If you look at the death case, this is one of the highest days of death in the COVID data for Israel. I found one other day that was higher. Maybe there's one I didn't see, but for the most part, this is in the top couple most deadly COVID days on record in Israel. So they're having 88 deaths. I think the highest they had was a little over 100. Everything else has been mostly under 80. Record high amount of cases. Vaccinations through the roof, about 2 vaccines given for every person in Israel. And now they're just rolling out the 4th shot. I'm guessing at a certain point, the 5th shot will be rolled out. The Pfizer executive, this happened on a Zoom call, and now they're blaming anti-vaxxers for what they themselves said. So, it's so stupid reading this Times of Israel article. But anyway, I'm going to quote from this article. It says, early in the pandemic, we established a relationship with the Israeli Ministry of Health, where they used exclusively the Pfizer vaccine and then monitored it very closely. So we sort of had a laboratory where we could see the effect. This was Philip Dortmitzer who said that, the chief scientific officer at Pfizer. He was referencing Israel as sort of a Pfizer laboratory. And a lot of people caught on to that. And then they wrote this article and they're like, oh, the anti-vaxxers took this. And we're like, it has nothing to do with vaccine or no vaccine. It's the fact that your country is almost exclusively using the Pfizer vaccine. So yeah, you are kind of a laboratory for them, because you are the greatest case study of what happens when this many people take 2 shots, 3 shots, 4 shots. There are no long-term studies of what happens when you take 4 mRNA injections from Pfizer. You are the study, Israel. So he's totally right. I mean, that's not pseudoscience. That's just reality. They don't have 10-year trials of studying 4 booster shots. You're the trial. But they're starting to say in this article that health officials deny that the country signed an exclusive deal with the pharma giant, noting that the Moderna shots are also administered. So, I guess Pfizer kind of let the cat out of the bag and was like, we established a deal with Israel to exclusively use Pfizer. And now the government of Israel is denying it. Like, no, we have other vaccines here too. Do you? I mean, I'm sure somebody got their hands on a Moderna, but as far as I've heard, everything I've read in mainstream articles, like, the most basic stuff, everybody's been saying you've been using almost exclusively Pfizer. So much to the point that every journalist seems to think that you're exclusively working with Pfizer. The Israeli government themselves seems to think that they're exclusively working with you. But according to Pfizer, they're not exclusively. There's other vaccines available. Really? Tell that to the people of Israel, because I'm pretty sure most people got the Pfizer, and that's, what's widely available. But, apparently the Pfizer knows something that me, every journalist on the planet, and, the government of Israel themselves don't know. Thank you for correcting us. According to Jerusalem Post, which is another Israeli Jewish blog out of Israel, coronavirus in Israel, this is on Sunday, 67,000 cases, nearly a 30% positive rate on the test, which is crazy. I guess 30% of the tests taken that day, around 29%, came back positive. That's crazy. That must mean it's working. You know what I'm saying? Watching videos of Rachel Maddow and Rochelle Walensky tell me, if you get this thing, you're basically not going to get it or spread it. Videos of Bill Gates saying, we need to get a vaccine that prevents transmission. Like, we got one and it protected you against hospitalizations, but we need a new one. The fact that the Pfizer CEO is basically talking about making a new vaccine. I'm just going to ignore everything you guys said, all of that, and just assume that this is what record high success looks like. Record hospitalizations in Israel, multiple booster shots, record high cases, number 1 in the world in cases per capita, equivalent to 7.5 million cases today in America, and one of your most deadly days on record from the COVID data. If that's not success, I don't know what it looks like. And you have to say it's successful because big government has colluded with big tech, has colluded with big media, has colluded with big celebrity industrial complex to pretty much make it illegal in this new authoritarian world to say that this product doesn't work well. So you have to love it. You have to just say, man, this is awesome. This is great. I don't know what would happen without this product because this is just stupendous. That's all you really can say, because we're under medical authoritarianism and you will be deplatformed, shamed, kicked out of your work, lose your medical license, lose your career, and perhaps eventually face jail time for dare questioning big pharma. The same big pharma that was responsible for the Bextra crisis and record high, at the time they're settling out like multi-billion-dollar fines. The same big pharma, like Bayer's not involved with this, but Google Bayer HIV, selling to other countries, like, Google that little crisis. The same big pharma and big government system that has, time and time again showed that they've dropped the ball on the opioid crisis, showed that they're dropping the ball on the fentanyl crisis. these are the people. The fact that our life expectancy is going backwards in America and more teenagers and 20-year-olds are dying, which is sending our life. Ignore all of that. These people are perfect. I mean, ignore the ignore the Lyme disease vaccine, ignore the 60 Minutes video interview that Mike Wallace did back in the day talking about the swine flu vaccine and how they rolled that out and the CDC corruption. None of that exists, folks. You live in a world where big pharma is perfect. You have to love the government. And if you don't believe me, listen to left-wing activists who claim that they're anti-corporation and anti-government, but they literally push the agenda of the number one lobbyist in Washington. That's Big Pharma. When cigarettes used to lobby Washington, they got away with whatever they wanted. When big agriculture lobbied, the government, was it perfect? Let me just read some things. This is New York Times. This is no, far-right blog. This is the standard New York Times. They wrote an article in 2016. It says, how the sugar industry shifted the blame to fat. And it did a deep dive on how the sugar industry, this is directly from New York Times, folks. The sugar industry paid scientists in the 1960s to play down the link between sugar and heart disease to promote saturated fat as the issue. Okay. Wait, trust the scientists, trust the experts. Well, in the 1960s, they literally paid them off in order to push an agenda so the sugar industry could make a lot of money. Sound familiar? Well, that could never happen again, right? It's like World War II. It's like bad things happen, but we got rid of the bad guys, and now you can't question anybody, just Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump. Like, that's the only, and Robert Malone. But everybody else tells you the truth. It's like, get over yourself. What about recently? What about the food pyramid? Do you remember that? Here's a Salon article. It says the FDA's phony nutrition science, how big food and big agriculture trumps real science and why the government allows it. Sugar and corn syrup have been pumped into the food chain, causing a dramatic increase in illnesses. Here's why. There's been dramatic increase in illnesses. Are you sure? Because I look at Rochelle Walensky's bulging AOC eyeballs, and I just think she looks like a character out of the Looney Tunes. And I just think trustworthiness, integrity, and just pure soul, fighting the evils of Rand Paul. I can't believe that, our CDC would allow illnesses to rise, like chronic illnesses like diabetes, heart disease, obesity. I mean, in the last 20, 30 years, fentanyl, opioid overdoses, corruption with Purdue Pharmaceuticals, Pfizer settling lawsuits, Johnson & Johnson settling lawsuits. Moderna hasn't even had a chance to settle a lawsuit yet because this is their first real product on the market. But don't question these people. They could never do wrong, except for like the dozens of times when they literally got caught doing that in the last 20, 30 years. And now they're so trustworthy because if you actually do research and challenge them and intellectually analyze what's going on, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist and try to take your channel down. Oh yeah, that really proves that they're up to good. You can't question them, but the World Health Organization literally questions them and says, we don't think that the booster's right for children. That's the WHO. If the WHO's saying that, imagine what real doctors that don't have any ties to these global initiatives are saying. You wouldn't want to hear it. So overall, that's the story with Israel. It's booster city. I guess that's what success looks like. I'm so, happy for Pfizer and Moderna and, the governments around the world who collaborate with them. I'm very happy for the is it the NIH or I'm trying to think who owns the Moderna vaccine with Moderna. Let me see. Moderna, joint ownership, government. Who owns the Moderna patent? Oh, look at that. CBS News, November 15, 2021. Moderna offers the National Institute of Health co-ownership of COVID vaccine patent amid dispute with government. So as they're telling you that this is all about you, we don't care about profits. It's just about you. Well, Pfizer's making a lot of money. Moderna's making a lot of money. What do you know? The government's beefing with Moderna because the government believes that it owns a part of the patent. And guess what? Moderna conceded that because that was reported even in 2020. So this is CBS News. Moderna offers the National Institute of Health co-ownership of the COVID vaccine patent amid dispute with government. So there can't be any sort of, conflict of interest there when our NIH, which Fauci's the little head puppet of, is literally co-owning the patent for Moderna. That sounds like a kooky conspiracy theory. It's literally CBS. You could look this stuff up yourself. And certainly, here's what I don't want you to do. Don't Google oral vaccine Sudan. Do not Google that, because if you do Google oral vaccine Sudan, you're going to find a crazy AP article that says, most polio cases found in Africa now are from the oral vaccine. And I would hate you to read that article because, that can't happen. And if that happened in the last couple of years, it certainly could never happen again. So it's not even really worth reading. It's just a one-off mistake. Whoops, a few people got polio from the oral thing, whatever. Sweep that under the rug. Don't talk about it. So don't look that up. But let's get on to important things in America. A lot of people believe in monoclonal antibodies. Some don't. And Jen Psaki explains why they're taking them off the shelves, the emergency use authorization. Let's take a listen.
So
that's
this
not
is
her,
why
but
the SAGE, which is our technical expert body that makes policy recommendations, has been meeting and will continue to meet, will meet later this week to consider the specific question of how should countries think about giving boosters to their populations with a view to protecting people.
Secondly, the FDA yesterday withdrew the EUA for some monoclonal antibodies.
Her energy's so dark. I feel like I'm hanging out with the Grim Reaper. Like, it's like she walks into the room and it just feels like a funeral. She's got such dark energy, but whatever.
Treatments because they don't work against Omicron. But Florida continues to push for the treatment for people in the state. What's your response to Governor DeSantis, and what's your message to the people of Florida?
Well, let's just take a step back here just to realize how crazy this is a little bit. We've approached COVID treatments like filling a medicine cabinet. We're not relying on one type, one brand, or treatment. We invested in and continue to buy a variety across monoclonal antibodies, pre-exposure prevention therapies, and oral antivirals. We have provided 71,000 doses of antivirals to Florida, including 34,000 additional treatments that do work against Omicron just this last week. Of a range of those treatments, I should say, to be clear. What the FDA is making clear is that these treatments, the ones that they are fighting over, that the governor is fighting over, do not work against Omicron, and they have side effects. That is what the scientists are saying. We have sent.
Don't work against Omicron and have side effects. What does that sound like? I'm not going to say it. But if y'all are interested, I know this. I'm going to play the rest of the clip. I got a harmonica solo for y'all later because Neil Young is trying to kick Joe Rogan off Spotify. So it just gives me another excuse to play my harmonica. So maybe that'll interest a few winners in the chat. But let's listen to Dark, Grim Reaper Psaki.
71,000 doses of treatments that are effective against Omicron and are effective also against Delta. And they are still advocating for treatments that don't work. We've seen, unfortunately, from the beginning in our pandemic response, a range of steps or pushes that have been made through social media platforms, unfortunately from the mouths of elected officials, and the advocating for things that don't work, even when we know things do work. Injecting disinfectant, promoting other pseudoscience, sowing doubt on the effectiveness of vaccines and boosters, and now promoting treatments that don't work. We know what works, vaccines and boosters. We have a range of doses of things that do work and treatments.
We know what works, vaccines and boosters. If I was left-wing, thank goodness I pay attention. And thank goodness a lot of people in my family pay attention or having me to talk to. If I was left-wing, I as much as she's saying other stuff, I would think the only thing available is vaccines and boosters, right? That's what vaccines, boosters. That's it's like millions of people in Israel, in America, all over the world, tens of millions of people. At a certain point, it's going to be hundreds of millions of people who are vaccinated are catching the sickness that you claim that it's helping them against. And guess what? When they get sick, there's certain treatments available that certain people want to take because it's not the be all end all that you say it is. You could still die with it. You could still get sick. You could still get hospitalized. Only right wingers and Joe Rogan are talking about other treatments. I'm not saying to listen to them, listen to somebody that you trust in the medical industry, but I am saying it's like the right wing is open to all these options. The left wing, it's like booster vaccine. Everything else is crazy. It's like, is it though? Are you just waiting till people get in the hospital and then you throw some stuff at them instead of like trying to get people early treatments of some kind? I know she mentioned a few, but it's crazy. Ron DeSantis is very upset. The Surgeon General of Florida is very upset because they were touting these as working very well. And we all know what's going to happen. Pfizer's working on a pill. Pfizer's working on a new Omicron, vaccine that will probably be too late because they'll probably switch to a new variant by that time. And then he'll be like, oops, I'm late again. Just like but it's ridiculous, in my opinion. I want to read something real quick because I have two articles side by side. This is ABC News, January 17th. It says Israel study, fourth vaccine shows limited results with Omicron. Okay. An Israeli hospital says preliminary research indicates a fourth dose on the coronavirus vaccine provides only limited defense. So they're saying even in Israel, even the fourth vaccine, not my word, ABC News, Israel study, mainstream, they're saying limited results with Omicron. What is CNN saying in their article today about the monoclonal antibodies losing emergency use authorization? It says, Florida is closing its monoclonal antibody treatment sites, health officials announced late Monday, citing the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's decision to limit the use of certain versions of the treatments that were found less effective against the now dominant Omicron variants of the coronavirus. So they'll pull the EU of monoclonal antibodies and say, well, you know, we've realized that it's less effective. They didn't say not effective. They said less effective. Guess what else they're saying is less effective against Omicron? The things that she's talking about. They're admitting this publicly, but they're like, yeah, these are less effective, but they're still effective. Monoclonal antibodies, I mean, you know, we got to pull them off the shelves. I know something that they'd never pull the emergency use authorization from, talking about side effects. She's like, oh, you know, they have side effects. They have this. I'm sure she's right, like every medication, but you're not being honest about the vaccine. You know, she doesn't warn people and say, yeah, if you take monoclonal antibodies, make sure you talk to your doctor, because if you take monoclonal antibodies, there are side effects for certain people. That's fair. Does she ever say that for the vaccine? Of course not. They're sweeping all of that under the rug. In fact, if you report on it, you're at risk of losing everything, even if you're the victim of an injury. That's how sick these people are. Unbelievable. It's so important, just to wrap it up real quick, in my opinion, you know, I like the fact that we have some sort of regulation. Like, it's definitely, I think in some ways good. You know, you don't want everything allowed. Like, you need certain laws in this country, but the FDA and the CDC, regardless of all this propaganda that they're pumping into the media, because Big Pharma is just paying everybody off, they don't have a flawless track record at all. New York Times reported in 2016 that in the 60s, the sugar industry paid off scientists to play down the link between sugar and heart disease. You think that Big Pharma can't do that now? They've already got caught doing it. Google Pfizer bribing doctors, Pfizer Bextra, Pfizer criminal charges. Johnson & Johnson. Google all these companies and look at their track record. They're not flawless. Our government's not flawless. The CDC is far from flawless. The FDA is far from flawless. Big Pharma is probably the furthest from flawless. I would consider them, among all the industries, one of the most corrupt, if not the most corrupt industry, which just so happens to be the biggest lobbyist in Washington. And lobbying is paying off people. You know, I was reading a Harvard business thing today. I bought a magazine at the store. Some of the articles were good. Some of them were trashy. But I'm reading about lobbying, and she's talking about, you know, Citizens United from a left-wing perspective. And the whole article, it's like they're talking about how bad lobbying is and Republicans. I'm like, no mention of Big Pharma. Big Pharma is the number one lobbyist in Washington. Fact. It's not my opinion. That's a fact. And left-wingers don't care about it anymore. It's like, what do you care about? You know, Google giving $30,000 to Republicans. Oh, they gave $30,000. It's like, what about Big Pharma giving tens of millions or billions of dollars to these people and paying off celebrities? That's still happening. The FDA did the same thing with the food pyramid. And there's a Salon article, believe it or not, that's really good, who talks about how they have this new rollout of this new food plan that they're doing. The experts are doing, My Plate. You know, that's the new one. Oh, it's not the food pyramid anymore. We admit we were wrong. It's My Plate. And this whole Salon article was talking about when they rolled that out, that was bullshit too, because it was based off of, you know, faulty science and big agriculture lobbying. So this is like real history. This is real reality. I'm not saying that this is bad or this is good, but we need to be able to challenge Big Pharma. We need to be able to challenge our government. And if we have the federal government coming in and just eliminating all of their competition to Pfizer, and then Pfizer's going to roll out its pill and Pfizer's going to roll out its vaccine, the logic makes no sense, in my opinion. Monoclonal antibodies are outdated and they're limitedly effective. Okay. Well, isn't that kind of what Pfizer's saying about his vaccine? We're working on an Omicron one that works better. Bill Gates says the same thing too. We need to work on a new vaccine. So with that same logic, then why don't you take the EUA away from those as well and say, you know what, we're working on a better one that's more effective. You can lie to everybody. You could brainwash half the planet. You could do what you want. The proof is in the pudding. Look at one of the least affected regions in the world. It's Africa. They're also the least vaccinated region in the world. Israel's one of the most vaccinated with the strictest laws and the strictest Green Pass rules. You know, at one point they were one of the leaders in vaccination. I believe they've fallen a little behind, but needless to say, they're still majority vaccinated. They're having record amounts of cases, record amounts of hospitalizations, the second or third highest day of deaths. I mean, if this is what success looks like to people as our country gets fatter, as kids die of fentanyl, as kids die of opioids, I mean, put the pieces together, folks. The food pyramid was a lie. You know what I'm saying? They shove sugar down your throat. They're advertising Captain Crunch to your kids, a bunch of bullshit sugary products that are not good for them. You know, the Flintstone vitamins had food coloring, I believe, at some point in them for a while, and they recently took them off the shelves. My friend Jesse Itzler, very, very successful guy, has been, you know, going after Flintstone vitamins for over 5 years now, calling them out for their bullshit products. You know, they're feeding you bullshit everywhere, in your vitamins, in your cereal, in your children's stuff. I mean, people can't put the pieces together. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, oh, this is what success looks like. Record hospitalizations, record cases, you know what I'm saying? 4 booster shots, record amount of profits for Pfizer, pulling like alternate medications off the market, you know, other things that are not as profitable because you could buy them for a couple cents or a couple dollars. Yeah, I'm sure that has nothing to play with it. I'm sure it's all just for your health. I'm sure they have no financial incentive at all, except for the fact that the government, NIH, owns part of the Moderna patent. And the fact that, you know, they spent $18 billion funding vaccines. You think they're going to spend that money and then not use it? You know, oh, we're going to just give them $18 billion. And then if it doesn't work out, you know, Trump always brags about, I took a huge risk and it paid off. Oh, I took the greatest risk by funding Operation Warp Speed. We never knew if it was going to work or not. Do you think, and I'm just going to ask this question, do you think that if they spent $18 billion, this is a hypothetical, I'm not saying this happened, if they spent $18 billion funneling money to AstraZeneca, funneling money to Moderna, you know, buying Pfizer shots, etc., and in the studies, it wasn't as promising as they had planned, do you think they would shut it down and be like, oh, yeah, we just wasted $18 billion. No problem. Pfizer, you're going to make no money. Moderna, you're going to make no money. Your stocks are going to go down. You know, we failed you. Do you think that the government would be man enough to admit that and be like, yeah, we took an early risk. We paid them, but now the risk didn't pay off. So we're just going to throw them all in the trash. Of course not. Why don't you look up what Bayer did with their pills and medication that they knew was HIV infected? What did they do with that? Did they throw it out or did they give it to a foreign country? You know, these people are just ripe with corruption. Time and time again, they've been caught with malpractice, pushing things that they knew were damaging, lying about things, bribing doctors, bribing scientists. This is real history in big agriculture and big pharma. History constantly repeats itself. They've only gained more power and more influence since the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. More kids are on pills, more childhood vaccines, you know, less liability. The cycle just continues. How could people not figure it out at this point? You know what I'm saying? And if you needed any more help to figure it out before I end my rant, just look at old videos of what Fauci was saying. Look at old videos of what Trump was saying. Look at old videos of what Rachel Maddow was saying. Look at old videos of what Rochelle Walensky was saying. Did they want a vaccine that you needed to take 4 times in order to, checks notes, record cases, you know, second or third most deaths in COVID in your country of Israel that has 500,000 boosters, 5 million regular booster? Is that what they were promising you? No, they said you can get back to normal and take off your mask when you get this vaccine. They told you at a certain point they were aiming for transmission to end. When you listen to Donald Clunk speak, he sounds like a 3rd grader, but he's like, oh, I thought it was going to go away. Oh, I thought operate. Yeah, of course you did, dummy, because that's what a vaccine usually does. Google the definition of vaccine. It doesn't say get 4 shots and go in your house and get Omicron. That's not the definition of a vaccine. It says immunity, straight on Google. I'm going to read it right now just so I don't get in trouble. This is the Google definition of vaccine. It says, I quote, okay, I got to say that definition. It says a substance used to stimulate the production of antibodies and provide immunity against one or several diseases, prepared for the causative agent of a disease, its products or synthetic substitute, treat to act as an antidote without inducing the disease. Immunity without inducing the disease. That's what it's going to do. Whoa, I have immunity for a week, a month, or 2 months. I mean, Is that what they were planning? I mean, maybe, but in general, listen to they're like all like, yeah, like, do you want me to get the clip of Bill Gates being like, we got vaccines that helped like this, but we can get new ones. Pfizer's talking about a new one. Trump's flabbergasted that this is even like they're all, not going to tell you. But I think the point of a vaccine usually is you get it and then you don't get sick, from the disease that it's supposed to protect. That's ideal. They could lie to you and say, of course that's ideal. If everyone got tetanus after they got the tetanus vaccine, oh, but you got less tetanus, people would be a little skeptical. And I'm not saying tetanus is COVID, just for the fact checkers. I'm just saying it's like, usually products sell themselves when enough people get them and enough people don't get sick off the thing. It's like, oh yeah, that felt like it worked or whatever. It's not like, oh yeah, like, remember that country that we told you was going to hit no COVID? You can find articles saying, oh, Israel, they're so vaccinated. They're a beacon of light to the world. I mean, oh my gosh, they're going to get to no COVID. They're going back to normal. Everything's going to be great. They were predicting no COVID. They were predicting elimination of the virus, not record number 1 in the world in cases per capita. Guys, it's so obvious. Someone said, you almost got the whole way without a Trump bash. It's not a bash. He rolled out the vaccines. He's Mr. Operation Warp Speed. If there were honest analysis of this, he's complicit. He's not Mr. Innocent, good guy. How could you talk about these without talking about his initial $18 billion funding and, champion of the project? If you're going to talk about the rollout, the effectiveness, he's a big player in it. Obviously, it's not like his idea. He just signed a piece of paper and acts like he's Nikola Tesla. He dupes his, I did the vaccine. Dude, you signed a piece of paper, dummy. It's like Obama would have signed that piece of paper. Hillary Clinton would have signed that piece of paper. One of the greatest deceits of him is like, oh, I did Operation Warp Speed. I'm a big boy. I'm such a good pharma boy. And everyone's like, yeah, he saved us. And it's like, you realize Bill Clinton would have signed Operation Warp Speed. Obama would have signed Operation Warp Speed. Mitt Romney would have signed Operation Warp Speed. John McCain would have signed Operation Warp Speed. Jeb Bush would have signed Operation Warp Speed. This wasn't some radical Space Force plan that Donald Trump invented. It was big pharma and big government giving him a paper and him signing it like a third grader and them telling him, here, put a crown on your head. They gave him like a Burger King crown, like a big pharma Burger King crown. They're like, here you go, Trump. You're the king of science. He's like, I am? Am I Nikola Tesla now? It's like he acts like he actually did something. So to your defense, it's like, yeah, he really didn't do anything but sign a paper that every politician would have signed, but he just sells it like as if he's he's selling me a Toyota Corolla with 700,000 miles on it. This baby will work great. He slaps it, the door falls off. I'm like, why'd the door fall off, Trump? He's like, oh, it's suicide doors. It's the new style. You want the door to fall off. It's, it's exchangeable. It's like those Jeeps, you just take them off sometimes, go for a ride with the breeze. Like he's selling Operation Warp Speed like a Corolla salesman with a 700,000 mile. I'm like, 700,000? You sure this thing can still run? He's like, oh, come on. He's like, well, let's just roll that number back. It's 300,000. We'll just move the speedometer or whatever it's called, the mileage tracker. All right, let's see what we got going on. I'm going to try to do a report on the trucker situation. I don't know if you guys have been following, but there's a big trucker protest in Canada. I'm going to try to cover that. Also, I have a video on this like lab monkey thing. It's like the CDC with our taxpayer dollars. What are they doing? Did they learn their lesson? Oh no, they're transporting monkeys in Pennsylvania on a truck. Like, is there a smarter, safer way to do this, dummies? Like, oh yeah, let's just put a bunch of lab monkeys on a truck. Apparently it crashed. Apparently someone's sick. It sounds like a stupid plot. Like, if this is our government, I'm over it. It sounds like if I worked in Hollywood, it's like someone comes to me with this like movie. They're like, hey, I have a movie like, the CDC's transporting infected monkeys and they get in a crash and they infect somebody. And then there's a new pandemic. It's like, I would look at it. I'm like, dude, this script is played out, bro. Get this out of my face. Come back with something more creative. That's what it sounds like with me. It sounds sketchy, but yeah, the truckers in Canada are pretty strong. Now they're trying to smear it as like a racial movement. I saw something that's like, it's a white nationalist movement. It's like, my gosh, these people just never stop. You can't even avoid their authoritarianism. If you don't want to live the rest of your life like a peasant and an abused animal, they're like, is this some sort of extremism? It's like, you're the extreme ones, guys, but it's okay. They're like, Jordan Peterson is too extreme. Do you realize Jordan Peterson is like a nice guy? He's like not that crazy at all. He's not in the top like 1,000 crazy people I've ever seen. He literally is like, he kind of reminds me of like Childish, even though he's like 2 years as old as me. He has like this, I mean, he's very well spoken, but he has this like spirit, kind of like a baby, like, oh, I don't know, big pharma's corrupt. I got the shots and now I'm mad. I was on pills. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying he's like very innocent. You know, he's like a nice, innocent guy. I just think he's like blown away by how evil the world is. And they're like, Jordan Peterson's an extremist. Like, Jordan Peterson is the least extreme person. He's like a nice, childish old man who's like so naive to the evils of the world. And I'm not trying to be mean. He's a nice guy. I'm just saying, like, that's who they think is too much. It's like, what? Someone said you look good for 72. I meant 2 times as young. Did I say 2 times as old? My bad. Someone said he's a dope. Well, I think he's smart, but he has some blind spots. I feel bad for him because I saw his tweet. He was like, I got the 2 shots thinking they would leave me alone, and they're not leaving me alone. I'm angry now. And I'm like, bro, I'm not trying to be mean, but he used to, as nicely as I could put it, because I really like Jordan Peterson. I'm glad he's happy and healthy and back. He used to kind of like promote pharmacy pills a little too much. I don't think he was fully promoting them, but he'd write about it in his book. And then he had a huge, like really bad couple of years where he almost lost his life and lost his mind to pills. And it's like, I'm not trying to be rude because everybody learns at different times, but I'm like, how are you a lifelong clinical psychologist and you don't know the evils of big pharma? I would think as a clinical psychologist, one of the biggest issues that you'd probably come across is people that have been, you know, overprescribed or are on a mess and on a bunch of pills. So it's like the dude has like a 2-year, like, you know, pill thing. And then he finally gets back on his feet, and then he runs to go get the boost, the 2 vaccines. And then like 5 months later, he's like, I didn't know that this would happen. It's like, that's what I'm trying to say. He just reminds me of like a nice, naive guy, you know, like he just keeps falling for the same trap. And then he's like, oh, I'm going to get you this time. And I feel bad. I'm like, Jordan, watch out for that bear trap. You know, everybody has their blind spots, but I just feel bad that he keeps getting duped by big pharma. But now he's back, and I feel like he's like stronger than ever, and he's like, he gets it now. But I just hope he doesn't do this again, because I feel bad for the dude. It's like, he's like, I thought if I got my booster shot, I'd go back to normal. It's like, no, Jordan, stay away. No, look out for those guys. They're just telling you that. But someone said my video just stopped. I don't know. All right, I guess so I forgot I was gonna play the harmonica. I almost said I was gonna play the vaccine. Jen Psaki would probably like that. I was like, hey, I'm gonna play a vaccine song. Neil Young, he's one of, I would say, the more famous harmonica, songwriters out there, who I was just starting to like again. Now I guess I don't, but he's trying to kick Joe Rogan off of Spotify, and he's saying that, I don't want my music on Spotify if Joe Rogan's on there. And he recently was on Howard Stern as well, and saying he didn't want to do shows until COVID was beat. So he's one of these like deranged liberal old men who think that COVID's going to be beaten or something. Like, go to Israel then, Neil Young. I don't even know if he's Jewish. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, like, go to a country that has 4 booster shots. Go get your 4th booster shot in Israel. And then you could hang out with other vaccinated people and realize that it's not going away from all the vaccinations. It's just not. Like, that's what the world is telling us right now at this moment. So he's like, I'm not going to do shows until Corona's gone. It's like, okay, then sit inside, leave us alone. I want Joe Rogan gone. It's like, go away, old man. So, this is just my remix of Heart of Gold real quick. I'm probably going to screw it up, but dedicated to Neil Young. So it's like, what was I going to say? Neil Young's trying to censor Rogan Joe. Old man's getting old. That's all I got. Just a little sample of Heart of Gold remix. Old man Neil Young. I'm not as talented as you. I can't play the harmonica as good. I can't sing as good, but you gotta calm down, old man. You gotta just sit down, do some push-ups, watch Wheel of Fortune, watch CNN, do what you gotta do, but stop trying to shut the whole world down because you're afraid of Omicron. It's not sustainable, my guy. I wish there were like public officials, like everyone just turned and was like, if you're afraid of coronavirus, stay home. Like, if your concept is everyone's going to get me sick, stay inside. That's not how things work. I'm sorry. No, like, you can't just make the whole world miserable just because you're miserable. These people got to stop. And the crazy part about that is, like, Joe Rogan would probably have Neil Young on his podcast. Joe Rogan's not stupid. Sometimes he downplays what he knows and stuff because he knows his place. But really, Joe is like a very smart guy. He's talked to thousands of experts on both sides. He has on like mainstream people. He's super smart. Neil Young would get embarrassed in a podcast. All these people want to kick Joe Rogan off. Like, could you imagine the audacity if I said, kick Anderson Cooper off the television now? Do you want to debate Anderson Cooper? No. Just kick him off. That's so obnoxious. I would love to sit down with Anderson Cooper in a 2-hour podcast and we could say whatever we want, ask each other questions, have a debate. I would love that. I would never want to deplatform him. I would love for a long form conversation that wasn't edited out of context either way. The audacity of these authoritarians on the left that are like, kick them all off. It's like, bro, he would eat your lunch, Neil Young. He would eat Neil Young's lunch. And I don't even know what Neil Young packed for lunch. Hopefully he packed some elk meat because Joe's known to like good elk meat. So hopefully you got some elk meat in the fridge, bro. Unbelievable. All right, I'm going to stay for a few more minutes. Someone said Neil Young fried his brain by the 80s. So did Kid Rock, but Kid Rock seems to know what's going on. So there's other people that have fried their brain that are not so authoritarian. Has Ozzy Osbourne come out in favor of mandates? I don't think so. Not that I've seen. So, there's other people that have fried their brain that are not going that hard. All right, let me see the star chats real quick. Lindsay said, thank you for your research and honesty. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Beata. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Alquist. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Laura. Terry said, would love if you could be present at these press conferences to press her with her royal darkness. I would love to be a White House reporter maybe, but at the same time, I wouldn't wear a mask so they'd kick me out. Like, that guy, Peter Doocy, who they he called a son of a bee. I saw his face for the first time on Jesse Waters' show. I just saw a little clip on Twitter. I didn't even know Peter Doocy had a face. Like, to me, he's like a maskless zombie. He's always at the White House. He's like, excuse me, Joe Biden, Jen Psaki, I work for Fox News. I thought he was a zombie. So I saw his face and I was like, oh, that guy has a face. I thought he was just another maskless peasant. So I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to wear a mask just so I can hang out with Jen Psaki. That sounds terrible. No offense, Washington, D.C., there's a lot of good people. I don't like Washington, D.C. I don't like the politicalness of it. I wouldn't want to be there, hang out with those people, wear masks. Like, they could offer me $1 million. I'm not even kidding. Hey, and I'm $1 million for you to go live in D.C. and wear a mask. I would turn it down. I'd be like, no, I don't. They're like, please just wear a mask and ask Jen Psaki. No, I don't want to wear a mask to hang out with you losers. Someone said DC sucks. I work there. Well, there's some cool places. I just don't like how politics run the whole city. I don't want to be around political operatives everywhere I go. I'm drinking a coffee in the morning and someone walks in a suit. It's just one of those. They buy, sell. They're like the Democrats and Republicans. Everyone's talking about politics, and I'm just trying to chill. I don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of political agents all the time. Somebody, there's an old saying that politics is ugly Hollywood. Like, all the ugly actors that are too ugly for Hollywood, they just go to Washington, D.C. and destroy your country. And I find that to be pretty accurate. A lot of these people really are just ugly celebrities that were too ugly to be like James Dean and, get the roles that like Ronald Reagan got and stuff like that. So they just go to DC and they're just like, mine, this is mine now. And you're like, cool. You're like, yeah, okay, you can, yeah, sure. You can have the Capitol, whatever, fine. But just like, can you stop stealing my money? They're like, no, we want to. It is true though. If you like look at these people, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being mean, but I didn't make that up. Google it. It's like an old saying. It's an old saying that someone else made up. I'm just transmitting the message. Someone said, I haven't hugged my family in over 2 years. I'm doing my part. We have to save the planet. Yeah, I just hugged my Fauci doll, I hug this too. You see what this says? Read it and weep, folks. Science, okay? I believe in the science. So I just kind of, people are like, Anomaly, are you single? Why are you single? You should find, and I'm like, no, I'm good, I'm just like, no, it's fine. This is the life I prefer. I love just cuddling up next to science and, playing my part. I'm gonna drink my soy, and they say there's too many people on the planet, so I'm just gonna suck down soy, cuddle with my science, knapsack or fanny pack rather, and just write blogs about my feelings. So I'm playing my part to make the world a better place. Oh, and then I go to like nice places and I ruin them. I thought of a good analogy for like people that hate America and don't know how to build it back. Like I feel like the Trump Biden sort of thing is so similar. Like I'm not saying if you have to like Trump or whatever. This is what I'm saying. But like there were so many people that didn't vote for Trump. They voted for Joe Biden because they just hated Trump, right? I hate Donald Trump. I'm going to vote for Joe Biden because I just, I hate Donald Trump. I'm not going to pay attention to anything. I just hate Donald Trump. So whatever. I'll just vote for Biden. I hate Trump. Like they didn't pay attention. It's the same with people who hate America. They hate America so much that they don't even realize that they're supporting equivalent to Joe Biden. Like Joe Biden is inferior to Trump in almost every single way. Speaking, like everything. The dude is a total clown. His policies suck. He's like stuttering. He's a fail of a person. Replacing Trump with Biden is the same analogy of replacing America with like this, this communist authoritarian medical regime that hides behind BLM and LGBT. It's like, it's not better than America. It's not better than the Constitution. It's not better than the First Amendment. It's not better than low taxes. It's not better than personal liberty. Like this new, but that's why people fall for it, is because they just hate America. Like I hate Trump, so I'm going to do this. I hate America, so I'm going to do this. People don't even realize how much they're being fooled. Like all this stuff is just taking away your stuff, taking away your money, taking away your freedom, taking away your liberty. And in 10 years, you're going to realize what it's like to not live in a better country. It's already happening. This country kind of sucks now. I still like America, but it's like, dude, they're kicking people out of hospitals for not injecting a Pfizer shot into them, which is proven in Israel to, just look at the stats. It's so unbelievable. This country is already getting to that point. And it's really happening for two reasons. One, these people who hate America, but don't have a plan to make a better America. What's your plan? Like everybody that I know that like hates Donald Trump for the wrong reasons, hates America, hates conservatives, hates, white this, white that. And it's like, okay. So what's your plan? What are you following? Like, what's your strategy? Like, they don't have one. You know what I'm saying? They're just like, oh, I don't know, like Nike, BLM, Pfizer, forced masking on children, that kind of stuff. It's like, that sounds horrible. You know what I'm saying? Horrible. And I saw recently that Robert Kennedy's wife is like condemning him because he made a Jewish comparison to like the vaccine mandates. And that's disgusting. His own wife is throwing him under the bus. It's like everybody uses the Holocaust and Hitler to their own, political analogies. And I don't agree with it. I barely use those analogies ever, if ever. I don't, because I think they're overplayed and overused. But, they said that kids in cages is like Hitler. It's like, dude, according to the story that they told us, people couldn't leave the country. According to the story that I saw with my own eyes in 2018, people were flocking to the country. If it was literally a Holocaust at the border, why would people be running towards the Holocaust? You know what I'm saying? So It obviously wasn't what was happening with the kids in cages. If America's so bad, stay in Mexico. But everybody wants to come here because it's better and they have more opportunities. So this idea, the left said, and a lot of Jewish experts that are liberal were like, this reminds me of the Holocaust. They compared Donald Trump to Hitler 1,000 times. But then Robert Kennedy does it one time with vaccine mandates and he apologizes, or his wife apologized. It's like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong because I don't really use that analogy very often, but it's like they do it a million times and then act like it's something that they've never heard of. How many times did they compare Trump to Hitler in ways that made zero sense whatsoever? On that note, I think I said it recently, but I started to realize something, and this is why it might come off wrong, but unfortunately, I'm just out of you know what's to give. For every ethnic group, I don't care if you're black, white, Jewish, Asian, man, girl, in between, whatever you think you are, whatever. You know, there's a lot of people in this world that identify themselves. I'm a black man. I'm a Jewish woman. I'm white. I'm this. I'm a girl. I'm a feminist. You know, people who use that. When I talk to myself, I'm a hip hop artist. I'm a news analyst. I'm an American. Yes, I have heritage. I have ethnic DNA as well. But, you know, I don't really identify as that very much because it's not focal in my personal life. But if it is in yours, I don't care if you're white, black, Hispanic, do you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to call you racist if you like a certain part of yourself. But the point I'm getting to is this. You have so many people in this country that are black and Jewish that constantly, more than any other cultures that I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not even going to say it's a bad thing, but I will kind of tell you how it's deceiving both of these racial groups. And I'm not saying my race is perfect, and I'm not saying Hispanics are perfect or Asians are perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But you don't see very many Asians play the victim. It doesn't really exist. Hispanics do not play the victim. It doesn't really exist. Black and Jewish are always talking about slavery and the Holocaust. You hear about it every time, all the time. Everything in this world relates to that. They're always feeling sorry for the past. Here's what I find fascinating out of that. Not the fact that you shouldn't know your history and reflect on it, but if you look at voting patterns in America, Black and Jewish are a majority Democrat voters who are pushing authoritarianism, who are taking away their freedom, who are kicking them out of restaurants if they're unvaccinated. And a lot of Black people are unvaccinated. So they're voting for the party that's kicking them out of restaurants. So the point that I'm getting is, I believe personally for any ethnic group, but especially the ones that complain the most, way more energy needs to go to self-accountability and self-awareness, because if you're always playing the victim and you're always looking in the past, you're getting tricked in the present moment. Israel's getting tricked in the present moment. Jewish Americans are getting tricked in the present moment. Black Americans are getting tricked in the present moment. Feminists are getting tricked in the present moment. I find it fascinating that the people that play the victim the most and look back at history are the ones making the same mistakes today. And it's starting to make me think that throughout history, it's not black or white. It's not these people. And yes, there are people who've been bad, but in general, if you're going to identify your whole life as an ethnic group and say, this is who I am, this is my race, I care about my people more than everybody else, then you call white people racist when they do exactly what you do, that doesn't make any sense. But that's all they do. I'm a Jewish group, and if you do that, you're a white supremacist. Then why do you do it? How come you want Israel to be a majority Jewish? How come you don't want Israel to be 70% Muslim or Arabic? Do you want diversity in Israel? No, you don't. Then shut the hell up about other countries. So you got these people who, manipulate history to make everybody feel sorry for themselves. Meanwhile, they're the ones doing a lot of damage and making the same mistakes today. That's why self-accountability and self-awareness. They don't even want you to criticize Israel while they're putting 4 booster shots in their own people. It's not Germany doing that. It's not America doing that. It's not Mexico doing that. You're doing that to yourself. So, and it's the same in America. You have groups that are saying, I'm against the vaccine passport. If you ask most Black people in America, they're not for forced vaccination. However, for some reason, voting patterns have not caught up to that to realize that it's Democrats that are forcing that down people's throats. And, they haven't figured that out yet because there's too much manipulation emotionally, using the past, using these events to manipulate people in the wrong place in the present moment. So it's like these ideas. My family came from Italy. My grandfather told me that they were racist towards him and nobody wanted to marry him because he was Italian. He worked as a trash person. But my family did not teach me to complain. My family did not teach me to play the victim. I have a Hispanic side of my family. They work harder than anybody. Nobody complains, no matter the fact of things going against them. The cultures that complain the most and use history to make everybody feel bad for them the most are the ones who just get away scot-free and make no accountable effort to look at what they're doing in the present moment and see if they're on the right side of the history or not. And in the country of Israel, I'm sorry, but they're not. In America, our country's not on the right side of history. You know, most people in my demographic are not on the right side of history, but you have feminist groups, Black groups, and Jewish groups. A lot of these people are leading the way to forced vaccination and medical tyranny. And, you know, all they do is call other people racist for questioning their authoritarian agenda. So I just find that fascinating. And to break it down, I mean, I'm sure there's some people who, you know, don't want to hear this or it might not come out right, but self-accountability and self-awareness is so key. If you're not present in the present moment, identifying what's going on, if you live in the past or you live in the future, that's when you make mistakes. This is the principle of so many key spiritual books and mindset books and entrepreneurs and life coaches. They tell you not to play the victim, live in the present moment, embrace right now, and that's how you build the future. When you're looking too far into the future or when you're looking too far into the past, that's when you make mistakes in the present. And that's exactly what's happening. And it really makes you wonder and think where, you know, I've heard all these stories about, you know, 200, 300 years ago. It wasn't like these people just did this and these people were doing nothing. When it came to the invasion of America, did white Europeans and Spaniards do some evil things? I'm sure they did. But was there peace and harmony in America? No, you had savage tribes killing each other in some cases. You had fights all over the world. You had Jewish people selling Black people into slavery. You had Black people selling other Black people into slavery. You had Black slave owners. You had Jewish slave owners. You had some white slave owners. So I'm not to put the blame on there, but when you learn American history, it's like white people bad, Spaniards bad, everybody else amazing, and they did nothing ever, and they're the victims forever, and everybody has to feel bad for them. And if you ever question their ethnic groups, you got to be a supremacist. And it's like, that's not true at all, because if you look back into history, there were bad players in every ethnic group, just like today. There are bad people that are white and Black and Asian, and there's good people that are Jewish and, you know, that are doing the right thing. And that's just all history. But we're learning this BS type of history where it's like, this group is horrible for all of history. This group is innocent for all of history. This group never did anything wrong. They just got oppressed and everything is everyone else's fault. And that's not true, because there were people in their ethnic group that sold them out, just like there are today. And if you listen to people like Malcolm X or you listen to people like Marcus Garvey, they spoke about this 100 years ago. Malcolm X was no left winger or right winger. He was like, yo, there's sellouts in our community. If you look on television, everybody that's pushing the Black agenda is working for the liberal. You know, he has multiple conversations about this, saying these people are being subsidized, sanctioned, and supported by the white liberal. So yeah, there are people selling my community out. He's like, but this is not an organic sort of thing. There are groups behind it pushing this message to us. So this is the challenge that I'm doing here today. One, in general, everybody feels like they have to be on their toes about certain topics. And I understand why. Everybody has to be like, oh my God, we have to remember this event, remember that event, remember the Armenian genocide, remember the Bolshevik Revolution, remember the Holocaust, remember slavery. But this idea that it's a good idea for everybody to say, oh my God, I didn't mean to compare it. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Really, what people need sometimes, unfortunately, is tough love. They need people to say, hey, look at your own country. Stop blaming white people or blaming Black people or blaming Muslims. And, you know, there's bad people everywhere and good people everywhere. Look at Israel. You know what I'm saying? Stop crying about anti-Semitism. Look at your own country. You know, taking away the ability to enter a restaurant without having a third booster shot. Is this human rights violations? Is this normal? You know, not to compare it to the past, but are you doing the right thing? When you focus on everybody all the time, you don't look at what you're doing. So I'm starting to think that, you know, all of this is a trap. When you're so focused on other things and you're so focused on the past, these are the same groups that are falling traps for the present moment. I feel bad for Robert Kennedy. His wife is turning on him. Marjorie Taylor Greene goes on an apology tour. Nick Cannon has to, you know, do 3 podcasts and do a book report with Barry Weiss. It's like, you know, but you can then say whatever you want against right wingers, Republicans, vaccines. You can make all these mistakes, but don't go there. Someone said it's inhumane and unethical what's going on there. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I see the tricks and the traps. It's like you have most in America. If you took a poll, I guarantee you'd find that most Black people in America do not agree with forced vaccination. In certain neighborhoods, a majority of them are not vaccinated. So of course they don't agree with what's going on. But here's the disconnect. Because Black Lives Matter and the NBA and the NFL and the entire Black, activist movement has been hijacked by the liberal, somebody that, I don't like to talk for people who are dead, but I guarantee you Malcolm X would have saw through this bullshit. He talked about this all the time. He said that the white liberal was the most deceitful person in the Western Hemisphere. He would have saw through this 1,000%. But in general, you have the liberal hijacking Black activism to the point where, despite the fact that most Black people in America are against vaccine mandates, they're still voting for, in droves, the party that's implementing their own destruction and their own forced masking. You have Republicans are standing up right now for freedom. No mask on your face, no forced injection from Pfizer, more tax money in your pocket, usually more freedom to opt out of certain plans. I'm not saying the Republican Party is perfect, but people have been brainwashed through this liberal Black activism to think that the Republicans and the white man are their biggest enemy because of past, and the Democrats are here to save you, when the Democrats are the ones that are taking everybody's crap away. So the reason that people don't understand this is because of the manipulation of the past, of the present, of certain events. It's so obvious, but people haven't figured this out yet in majority numbers. And same with in America. I'm sorry, but I don't care, because like you could look at women voting patterns. Women vote more Democrat. Men vote more Republican. Like these are just statistics, but in the Jewish community in America, they vote overwhelmingly Democrat. So you have the group of people that want to remind you more than anybody in human history about a bad event that happened to them that was, horrible, yet don't have the self-awareness to not usher in authoritarianism, medical tyranny, kicking people out of grocery stores, and in some cases, people like Howard Stern suggesting that you should just die if you don't get the Pfizer injection. Zero self-accountability and self-awareness, to the point where you are now being the evil people in history. You are now putting not only your people, but our people, the whole country, the world, into a state of essentially imprisonment, slavery, and authoritarian abuse. If you look up what it means to be enslaved, lose your freedom, losing choice of freedom or action. That's what enslaved means. That's what's happening. We didn't commit a crime. We didn't do anything illegal. This, millions of people just want to work, and they're being forced quarantined in their house in New Zealand and Australia. And it happened in America as well. If you're on house arrest and you didn't commit a crime, what does that make you? You're a slave, a prisoner? It doesn't make you a free man. And you know who understands this? Orthodox Jews in New York City. They weren't listening to your orders. Oh yeah, let's remember the past and let's always remind everybody of it. But what we're going to do is kick Orthodox Jews in their house and not allow them to leave, or else we're going to arrest them because we're the good people. It's like, what? It's such a trap. They use the past to hang it over people's heads to deceive them in the present, so that they usher in the same future that they're running from. I don't want this to happen. What do you think's going to happen if you make the country where you're putting it? You're not going to get a good country for Black people, for Jewish people, for white people, for Hispanic people. That's not where we're headed at this moment. If you break down society, if you break down our Constitution, if you get rid of the freedom of choice, this doesn't help me. This doesn't help the average Jew or the average Black American. Who does this help when you take away your ability to criticize Pfizer? People like Howard Stern. Oh yeah, why don't you just die? He says, why don't you just die basically if you don't get a vaccine in the hospital? You want to kill people who don't want a Pfizer injection in a country like Israel, where they're number one in cases per capita in the world, even though they have 3-4 booster shots. And if I want to opt out like I should, considering, in general, but considering this product so far, efficacy and stopping and blocking transmission, you want to basically kill me? You know what I'm saying? You want to kill this guy with a kidney transplant for having medical freedom? These people are losing their freaking minds, But it's because they use this stuff to hang over people's heads to deceive them into being the problem in the present moment. The average conversation on Twitter, when you see like liberal activists talking about Aaron Rodgers, who's, standing up against medical freedom, they just keep comparing him to Colin Kaepernick. Like, it's so low brow stuff. Like, oh, well, you let Aaron Rodgers do this, not Colin Kaepernick. First of all, Aaron Rodgers is getting a lot of backlash in the media. It's not like everybody in the mainstream media is disagreeing with them. But also, it's like Colin Kaepernick kneeled, right, for police brutality. Aaron Rodgers is standing up for medical freedom. These are two completely different issues. And it's like people can't black, white, bad, good. Like, people are thinking so lowbrow. There's a conversation around both of them, but they don't have anything to do with each other. It's just, that's like the quick viral thing and everyone shares it and nobody's thinking. But if we lose the freedom of speech in this country to criticize Pfizer, to criticize our government, to criticize big corporations, to criticize the number one lobbyist in Washington, this is not going to be good for Jewish people, Black people, liberals. This is going to be good for nobody. I would hope that more and more people are starting to come around to that, but just an off-topic sort of thing, but I'm noticing, I'm like, wow, if you statistically look at it, just statistically, the two groups that constantly look at history and constantly talk about it and constantly make everybody feel sorry for them are also two groups that are overwhelmingly supporting authoritarianism, directly or indirectly, without even knowing it, or maybe knowing it and not paying attention. But that goes back to, without seeming too mean, once again, to wrap it up, I'm not trying to be mean or taken out of context, but that goes back to living in the present moment. When you do too much of victim playing, when you do too much of looking in the past, you ruin your present moment. I want to use myself for an example. I know it's not going to be as severe, but when I was doing music and when I was trying to make videos and stuff, when I used to blame my mom and blame my family and blame my upbringing, my parents' divorce, whatever, I used to suffer. Because I would, instead of looking at the present and being grateful for what I had, I just kept blaming other people, blaming my past, blaming people who I felt that did me wrong. And my whole life got better when I stopped doing that. I was like, wow, I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed. I should focus on the good. And I never look back and I never look at that stuff. I could sit and look at every girl that's done me wrong, every friend that's done me wrong, and just sit on it and harp on it. But I'm so far in a different place now. I don't care about all that. I'm manifesting my own reality. And that type of ideology is how you win, grow, and become successful. A lot of conservatives, especially Black conservatives, talk about it, but it's like the victim mentality. It's the man, the oppressor, telling you to feel down about yourself. So then you manifest a life of feeling down for yourself. When your community is told to feel this way, then you're going to stay that way. In order to build out of that, you have to take the self-awareness and self-accountability to figure out how to do that. So it's the same thing with these two groups. They have been, by the media, by celebrities, by liberalism, by a lot of parts of history, been told that, you are this or you are that, and you need to keep thinking about this. So their mind's there instead of being here. So I find that correlation of, because that is such a precedence, people aren't really paying attention to the modern moment. And they're making a massive mistake that's going to screw people over again and screw their own people over again. When Kanye tried to talk about this stuff 3 years ago, it was the most controversial thing probably ever said in that year. He didn't say slavery was a choice. They took him out of context. But basically what Kanye was trying to say was people were enslaved for hundreds of years. He said at a certain point, it sounds like a choice to me, because his rationale was, if I was there and I was enslaved for 100 years, I would try to lead the charge against it, and eventually people did do that. It didn't last forever because there were brave people who made moves and they got out of it. That's what Kanye was trying to say. I would have been the one that got us out of it. That's the whole point he was trying to make. And they got so mad at him. Fast forward 2 years, you have people begging for forced masking. You have people begging for lockdowns. You have people begging for forced injections. You have people begging to have their own ethnic group kicked out of a grocery store. Just 2 years after, everybody who complained about what Kanye West said about slavery are the same ones who are supporting the mandates, are the same ones who supported lockdowns, are the same ones who are supporting authoritarianism. There's a correlation there. Victor mentality. I'm going to make it. Kanye West, you can't tell me nothing. Now he's the richest Black man on the planet. Why? Because he manifested that. He did not live in the box that liberals created for him. And people thought it was such a bad thing that he said that day. Think about how quickly it went from Kanye West's controversial opinion about slavery to people begging and voting for people that are admittingly trying to kick them out of society if they don't stay up to date with their Pfizer mRNA injections as much as they want, and kicking Kyrie Irving out of Barclays Stadium. It didn't take very long from it to go to here. And the same people mad at Kanye West are the same people that are falling for this stuff. You know, people that don't want to have a real conversation about the past or now. And that's the difference. Somebody that would say, I would try to rescue my people. I would try to save my people. I would try to avoid that. I would have tried to make it last shorter. I would have tried to break my people out, the Kanye West narrative. And the other side that says, oh no, I'm just going to complain about it all the time and cry about it all the time and blame everybody else and use it to hate other people, and then eventually make the same exact mistakes and end myself up in a possible very similar position because I keep my mind in the gutter and my mind in this place where it's being controlled. That's why Marcus Garvey said, one of my favorite quotes ever, a famous Black leader that they never teach about in school, Marcus Garvey, he said something along the lines of, you know, we have freed our bodies, but until we have freed our minds, he was talking about mental slavery. I forget the exact quotes, but he's like, yes, we've rescued our bodies, but be very careful because they are now going to try to enslave your mind. If they can't control your body, they're going to try to control your mind. And if they can control your mind, they can control what you eat, who you vote for, what you buy, how you think, you know, what music you listen to, what television shows you want, socially engineer you, what you think about sex, gender, everything. And also, you know, whether you support crazy, authoritarian, anti-Americans, totally ridiculous policy that is so bad for you and your people and prosperity. So it's such a trick. And, you know, I know a lot of people, rightfully so, very careful about what they say. They're on their toes. If you make a comparison to history, they will eat you alive. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm not saying it's a great comparison to always make, but at the same time, how many times have they done it as well? I'm so sorry. What are we talking about? I get what you're saying. Okay, you're saying you think kids in cages is bad. I get what you're saying. You think vaccine mandates is bad. We have to stop being so damn sensitive and so damn, oh my God, I'm going to apologize. That's why we can't talk about anything. You know, Robert F. Kennedy thinks vaccine mandates are a very bad thing and it's going to lead to very bad things. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez thinks that kids in cages is very bad and it's going to lead to very bad things. Can we talk about it? Can we debate about it? Can we have a conversation about it? You can't have a conversation about it if everyone's just apologizing all the time. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, that's so terrible. It's like, but what are you even trying to say? How are we going to help anybody if we can't even get to what we're even talking about? Everybody's just apologizing all the time. I equivocally don't apologize for thinking that these mandates, this medical authoritarianism, this extreme push towards anti-free speech, this extreme push towards, you know, censoring political expression through the guise of misinformation and hate speech, locking people in their houses, ignoring the fentanyl and opioid crisis, you know, ignoring the obesity crisis, feeding people high fructose corn syrup and terrible health advice while our country's life expectancy is going down, taking away gyms and spas and health facilities, taking away people's jobs and telling them that they're basically on house arrest for the crime of wanting to go outside. I have no problem equating that to whatever I want to. If I want to say that's a form of enslavement, I mean it, because the word slavery and the word enslave have a dictionary meaning. It's not just talking about one time in history. There's slaves in the world right now. After the Obama administration went over to Libya and killed Muammar Gaddafi, which was super messed up, what happened in Libya? Human slavery. It's not exclusive to the past. It's not something that just happened one time. Slavery continues to this day. Physical slavery, mental slavery, medical authoritarian slavery. It's a word that is a real word. You know, enslave has a meaning, and it's happening in the present day physically in multiple countries. It's happening in Africa, and now it's starting to happen in a more deceitful, more, you know, underhanded, hidden way in this country and in Australia. If you're caught in a facility that you're not allowed to leave, and if they catch you going to, you know, another person's room or leaving the facility, they arrest you and throw you back in the quarantine facility against your will, you're not free. What do you want to call that? You're a slave? You're a prisoner? Is it the worst form of slavery that's ever happened in the world? Of course not. Is it equivalent to a mass genocide? Well, not really at this point if they're not killing you, but over time, how did Mao Zedong kill tens of millions of people? Did he just shoot everybody? No, he starved tens of millions of people. So, there's Washington Post reports that say hundreds of millions of people might starve from this pandemic. So if somebody black, white, or Jewish wanted to suggest that this was possibly a genocide, they should be allowed to politically say that, whether I agree or not, because, at a certain point, we might never know how bad this was until it's gone. How many excess deaths did we have in suicides? How many people killed themselves because of the lockdowns? How many people got depressed? How many people got fatter? How many people got stressed out and fearful and ended up getting a heart disease? How many side effects were there? How much backlash is there going to be systemically? How much economic damage did we do to certain parts of the world? Did we kill off certain tourist destinations and destroy entire communities? Did we kill hundreds of thousands of people because of tuberculosis, medic shortages, because we were going insane? Yeah, according to Guardian, we did. So when all these numbers add up over the course of the next 5 years, whether you're black, white, Jewish, left wing, or right wing, you should be able to have an opinion. You should be able, if you want to, compare them to Stalin, Mao, or Hitler. Doesn't mean you're right. Doesn't mean I agree with you. But, whether you're Robert F. Kennedy or AOC, I don't have to agree with you. But this idea that we're not allowed to compare what's going on now in history, it's a way to brainwash people into thinking what's happening now is not that bad. And it is that bad. It is really bad. It's not exactly what happened in World War II. But overall, when you take everything they did on a wide scale, World War II and certain wars were fought in certain areas. This is a worldwide thing that's affecting billions of people. So when it's all said and done, they might have killed as many people as Mao Zedong, because Mao Zedong didn't just boom, 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 or drop a bomb. Mao Zedong starved tens of millions of people. When I go in the grocery store, and I'm not saying it's that bad, I'm not trying to scare people, but when there's 60, 70, 80% of stuff not on the shelves and I see it with my own eyes, that doesn't necessarily make me think we're heading in the right direction. There was never food shortages in my lifetime, but now there are. Biden's trying to block truckers from Canada and Mexico while we're having food shortages in certain areas. That doesn't sound like a good idea. So this is why the First Amendment, before I end my stream, this is why the First Amendment exists, is you're supposed to be allowed to criticize your government, criticize me, criticize AOC, criticize RFK, criticize, the mandates, criticize Israel, criticize America, Jewish, Christian, black, white. You should be allowed to talk about white people in any form that you want to. I should be able to talk about other ethnic groups in ways that are honest, and if they're not, correct me and tell me why you think I'm wrong, because none of it's nefarious. I just think this lack of critical thinking is really hurting communities. And to really sum up what I said before, I'm sure it's going to be misconstrued. I really don't give a shit. But in general, it's like, if you're in a certain group that nobody's having real conversations with you because they're afraid to, and nobody's telling you what they really think because they're afraid of censors and stuff, it doesn't mean they're not thinking it. And it doesn't even mean that it's not happening. It just means that society has been morphed in such a way where you're not allowed to question Pfizer, where you're not allowed to question the Biden administration in certain ways. You're not, it doesn't mean it's true. It just means these are the new rules. It's very fake. That's why the First Amendment exists. You should be allowed to criticize anything, in an honest form or in a dishonest form, and then have somebody more honest, counteract you and prove you wrong. That's what this country was about for so long. We're losing that. When we lose that, I promise you, there's going to be no benefit for Jewish groups or black groups, because this type of regime has no loyalty. It's not based off of logic, common sense, or morality. So if they're going to go for these people, then those people are out of the way. Now, they're eventually going to go for you. You're not going to have the right to speak. Oh, you're with the regime until something, clicks in your head and you're like, wait, I don't agree with that. Well, if they could take out Alex Jones or Joe Rogan for questioning them, why can't they take you off? And they will, and they have. They're already doing it with multiple music artists. And it shouldn't be that hard for people to figure out what they're censoring. Recently, they censored Bryson Gray's song off of Spotify. Who's Bryson Gray? An unapologetic Christian black artist. Who's Tom McDonald? He got censored today. His video is number 8 on the trending YouTube. They took him off the list. It goes from 7 to 9. They just blacked him out so people couldn't see his video. Why? I didn't even listen to his song, but it's called New World Order. What's it about? Not sure. Usually most of his songs are pretty much about the same thing from the last 6 that I've heard. So it's usually like counterculture, like the media's lying to you, the society's lying to you, and he's right. So the society that's lying to you doesn't want to show you an artist that's telling you that they're lying to you. This is not healthy or normal. This is a dystopian. So this idea that that's a good place to go, and people need to think about what is in rap music, right? What do rappers rap about? Eminem has the craziest songs about, fictionally killing his wife. You know what I'm saying? That's would be illegal. If he said that in person, he could be arrested or at least interrogated for that, because the First Amendment doesn't always protect threats. In fact, I believe it doesn't. But through music, Eminem has done that, you know, in a fictional way. There's all sorts of crazy telling people to kill themselves, talking about killing. People have gone to jail for rap songs that are still on Spotify because they've made themselves complicit in crimes they committed. Like this type of stuff, anything flies in music. But now, for your health, they're censoring Tom McDonald and Bryson Gray, who aren't even cursing in their songs. Like Bryson Gray doesn't even curse because he's conservative or because they're challenging the media and big pharma. And people think that's okay, or that's like they care about your health. Then why don't they censor every song that's about killing and drugs? And, you know, we have hundreds of thousands or millions of people dying of drug overdoses and opioid overdoses. How come they don't censor every song that tells kids to take pills? I could think of thousands of songs. Pills, take pills. I take pills. You should take pills. Pop a Molly, Xanax, Percocet. You know how many people pop Xanax, Percocet, Molly's and died? At this point, combined with opioids and fentanyl, millions have died doing that. And there's songs literally telling kids essentially, you know, do this, kill yourself, whatever. Like there's suicidal songs being like, I'm killing myself, I'm taking drugs. That's on Spotify. If they care about your health so much, why don't they take that off? Because they don't. They care about protecting their power, their agenda, and anybody who questions that is a threat. That's why they have all of these BS fake activism groups funneling people into this sort of activism that is not for your people. It's leading you down a path of losing the little bit of liberty that we still have in this country and in the world. So, you know, make no mistake. I know I'm rambling on, but when I say edgy stuff or things that people are going to misconstrue, I try to clearly explain myself because I know it's going to be taken out of context, and I'm sorry, but I'm not apologizing for something I'm right about. I won't bow down like Robert F. Kennedy or Marjorie Taylor Greene. I still love them both, but I'm not apologizing for being right about something. And I want to have a real conversation. You can say anything you want about white people. Clearly, the media already does, and they don't really seem to care. I don't mind. I just want equality. You guys talk about equality. I want to have demographic conversations as well, because you don't have to make me, you don't bother me. I don't care what people say. I'm not that soft, but I just want equality to speak honestly, because I feel like we're being duped and you're using and exploiting certain groups and certain agendas like the LGBT. You know, they don't allow like conservative LGBT people to pop up and be like, hey, like, you know, this is all a lie. Like, you're not going to get booked at the whatever rainbow parade, or I don't even know what they're doing. But it's like, it's all focused on steering people towards a certain ideology that's not good for this country. So that's what it is, folks. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. A rare little rant, but I am going to try to get that trucker video done by today or tomorrow. Hopefully I do. But God bless you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. I'm probably going to leave this one up for a day on Facebook and probably YouTube. And I might move it to Rumble and Gab because I touched on a lot of subjects. I mean, I don't care, but I know how psychotic these websites are. YouTube has already censored me. They lied about it. They said I said cloth masks don't work, but I was quoting a CNN lady who literally said that. They're such idiots. But, you know, so I might just move this to Gab or Rumble and do more uncensored content there. I'm thinking about doing more stuff on Patreon and, you know, more subscription stuff, maybe a podcast. I'm trying to figure out what to do, but you know, I might just leave this up for 24 hours, let it slide, let it ride, let it slide, and then just kind of document it in Rumble and Gab. And by the way, gab.com/dreamrare, rumble.com/dreamrare. Thanks to Andrew Turba, I have like 60,000 followers on Gab. There's a really, you know, I would say excited community there because he really stands up for free speech. I'm on bitshoot.com as well, Instagram, all that stuff. But, you know, I'm definitely going to look towards platforms like that. Real quick before I leave, my website, usaproductsonly.com. I'm getting my friend to help me out for a few months, so I'm going to have a little more manpower. My usaproductsonly.com website, if you type usaproductsonly.com, we're looking for more of your businesses. There's really, if you're made in the U.S., use U.S. materials, there's no reason to not check it out and give us an email. All we do is we're creating like a database, and we're not like taking your data or anything, but we're creating like a public link click. So if you go to that website and you're like, hey, I don't want to buy stuff from China. I don't want to buy stuff from like, you know, South America. I don't want to buy stuff from Taiwan. No offense to those countries. God bless them. But I want to buy in the U.S. I want to buy smaller business. I'm getting clogged with all this mainstream stuff. We already have over 230 businesses. Most of the people are people that follow me on Facebook and YouTube. And we're trying to create thousands of places that you could scroll through, check out the website, and 100% of the profit goes to them. We don't keep anything. It's all their stuff, but we're trying to make it like a digital farmer's market, a digital like trading post where you just kind of browse around and think about it the same way as if you went to a farmer's market or trading post. We scrutinize and we try to look at every company. We don't just add anyone. We do a really good job of trying to make sure they have sales, ratings, and it's pretty legit. We just don't add anybody. But at the same time, we haven't checked out every single product. It's like Amazon. I order things on Amazon almost all the time. They work. We're trying to do the same thing where it's like, making sure they're somewhat legit. They have sales, they have ratings, putting them up there. So if you use usaproductsonly.com, just make sure that you check out the website. And if you have any questions for them or something looks off or you just want more info, call them, give them an email, treat it like a farmer's market where you can, when I go to a farmer's market, I'm asking questions. What's this soap? What's in it? But usaproductsonly.com. If you think you have a good business for that, please email us. We're trying to get to the thousands. We need more people, and we're really going to push to making that bigger. I think we have hundreds of thousands of visits there already. We've already driven traffic and profits for people. We've kept nothing so far, and we'll continue to keep nothing. You get 100% of it, but we will eventually try to figure out some sort of way to generate revenue for ourselves so we don't just keep losing money, but we don't really care for now. And our goal is to always make it 100% profit for you guys and just really drive traffic to that. So if you got a USA company, usaproductsonly.com, check it out, give us a thing. And if your website looks pretty legit and has good reviews, ratings, etc., we'll add you and hopefully we will generate to your revenue and help your SEO so you guys get more sales. God bless y'all. And have a beautiful day. Someone said Anomaly's making big money now. I mean, I'm doing well on other things, but on USA products only, I've made $0. I've only lost money, but I don't care. I mean, if it turns into something, that's great. If not, we helped a lot of businesses, but I make my money on other sources, not on this website, to be honest, but it's all good. Have a good one. God bless y'all.